Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Big Freakin' Friday show on College Football Mafia. I see a lot of people in the chat are already saying a very special school name. I don't know if I noticed that Jose was a little upset that he missed the live stream. I saw that comment. Yes, we just got done shooting the live stream of Wild Ute University Live, Georgia Tech. So after the show, if you're a member, I would suggest you go over there and take a look at that. Very interesting thing. Uh, if you want to drink during it, that's your business. We drank during it, so you might as well too. Just don't drive. Don't drive. So, uh, Immaculate, Wild
Yes.
You, how do
How
you
we
want to
doing?
start? Immaculate, what's going on today?
Well, it's been an interesting Friday, as I'm pretty sure most or all of our viewers out there in chat have already seen what's been going on and what's been talked about. Mr. Dellinger for Yahoo Sports came out with a piece today. Seems that he's dropped some very important information, and we have that article. I think we're going to go through that tonight in full. There's a lot in there that has some of it nothing to do even with the CFP. Little Clemson talk coming in here tonight, guys. So we're going to dive into there, get your guys' thoughts. We want to definitely get your thoughts on what you guys think about this, what you see, and maybe dive into some of the unseen of this, is about what some of this actually means. So I think we got ourselves an action-packed Friday night, and still got a little of this left because I'm pretty sure we're not going to get out of here sober. So what do you think?
I think it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
That's
Mountain
right.
Standard Time right now. It's 5 o'clock. So Georgia Tech guys, bottoms up.
Oh boy, getting started. Okay, guys.
No, that was a lot of fun. The members only live stream video for Georgia Tech. So if you are a member, go check that out. It's going to be posted after if you didn't go, if you weren't there with us. But pretty revealing. I don't want to give it all away and stuff. So go check that video out and give it a like. And leave a comment below and stuff, and we'll interact on it because I'm curious, always curious about your guys' thoughts on the methodology plus what you think. Is Georgia Tech a fit or not for the Big Ten?
If you want to be an alcoholic, it's definitely a fit. That's all I can say.
Jeez.
But yeah, we're going to get into this Dellinger article. Let's go over some of the top points before we get a deep dive into it. Immaculate, go through the top 3 things you took away from this article.
Well, number one, he basically told y'all what we've been alluding to is that this conversation for the CFP is not just about crafting the tournament, what teams are in there, that type of a thing. It's also about ownership. It's about payout. It's about voting rights. And when I first saw this, it looked to me like the AQs were kind of, I guess you say, the translation of figuring out how much voting right you're going to have, how much payout you're going to have. And that's really come out within this article today is that, the payout, he said, I think the Big Ten, they're looking at trying to get 58%. Well, when we did the math on the AQs, where it was 4 AQs for the Big Ten and for the SEC, that was 8 total out of 14. Doing the math, 8 divided by 14, 57%. So they're pretty much taking it right down the line. The AQs were like code for payout and ownership. And even in the bottom, at the very end of this article, it says that unanimity will not be a thing going forward in 26. What that means is no more Schultzes with one vote holding the whole thing up. We don't know if it's just going to be simple majority. We don't know if it'll be a 2/3 majority or what will be required. But so far, that's what's really on the table here. They don't have any of this. The old contract that brought them all together, that's ending 25. That means voting rights, payouts, all of that stuff is up for grabs. It's not going to be like it was. It's going to be more detailed and defined. And the problems that we've seen go through in this time, those are all being addressed. So to me, that was it. It's voters' rights, it's payout, and then we even got a little dab in here, a little talk about how, according to a source, Clemson has their lawyers in hand, and they're working out their own paperwork and legal work in order to basically follow in the footsteps of Florida State. So to me, that was it right there in a nutshell.
All right, let's get to some. Go ahead, you.
No, go ahead. Let's.
I was going to get some shout outs here. Welcome people into the chat. Timothy Green's here with us. Good to see you, Timothy. Glenn Lumen, all the way from the Philippines. Sergeant Pickles, going to need a 12-pack. Okay, Sergeant Pickles, just make sure you don't drive anywhere. Stephen Veit, good to see you, Stephen Veit. Ryan Willie, we talked a little bit in the Georgia Tech stream. Good to see you, Ryan. Jim F's here. Laura Weiss is here. Carrie is here. Good to see you, Carrie. Let's see. Steven, I think I got him already. Buckshot Kid, drunk. Summit Hawk, let's go. I hear you, Summit Hawk.
Jayhawk squawk going on. All right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Do that. Carrie started us off with the Georgia Tech, and I'd be remiss. Carrie, I redid this for you. So
let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook.
All right.
I said let him cook.
That's an upgrade.
That's an upgrade.
Whoa.
That is an upgrade. Cook.
I was wondering, like, I don't hear anything different, but that's okay. And then it
preseason champions OHIO is here. He's glad most people survived. Mr. Monkey says, big time, long time. Good to see you, Mr. Monkey says. Laura Weiss from the Texas Tech Red Raiders is here. Chad Bracey's in the house. Antoine Codes is in the house. Good to see you, Antoine. WVU Earl wanted to stop by. She says, good show. I don't drink, but I have my medical card. Hey, if you live in a state that allows it, partake by all means.
Absolutely.
Sky is joining us. RFR Mac is here as well.
Go Utes.
That should get rid of that. Should be everybody that we've got in the chat right now. We got 87 people watching the stream live. If you guys would do us a favor and give us a like, helps us in the YouTube algorithm, and it doesn't cost you anything. If you're interested in becoming a member, you can go to the little cash icon at the bottom of the screen and become a member or gift memberships. Being a member gives you a nice little badge here in the chat that goes up with time, and it lets you see those wonderful members only videos like Wild Ute University Live, Georgia Tech. So if you would consider becoming a member, and I won't mention it again for another hour. All right, let's get right into this article here. All right, as college football playoff leaders, and this is from Ross Dellinger at Yahoo Sports, guys. And I will go ahead and post this link in chat real quick in case anybody wants to jump ahead. All right. As college football playoff leaders continue to examine the future of the enterprise, the industry sits on edge. The Big Ten and the SEC flex their proverbial muscles. The Big 12 and ACC toil over compromise. Playoff formats and revenue models continue to circulate. A deadline looms, an agreement is absent. And for some, a troubling certainty exists. Any deal reached will drive a further financial wedge among the four major conferences. The CFP is barreling toward a new format and revenue model that skews toward the new Power 2 of college athletics, creating a more formal delineation between two groups, the SEC and Big Ten, the ACC and Big 12. While the Power 2 separated themselves long ago through increased revenue streams and recent expansion, a new playoff model is expected to draw a more permanent line. Using an uneven revenue distribution, a tangible separation is forming between college football's halves and those that were once veritable equals in the space. Those with knowledge of the proposal spoke to Yahoo Sports under the condition of anonymity. You have two leagues asserting their power, described one college athletics administrator. So let's start there. What do you guys think of that? That they're going to basically use the CFP to strengthen their position and basically set the status quo as two above and two below.
How much money does the Big Ten want?
They
All
just
of
want
it?
they just
Yeah.
want the world, man. It's not too much.
They want the world, and
They want the world.
we're just living in the Big Ten and the SEC world, aren't we?
I mean,
Um,
yeah, keep going, brother.
Going back to right now, the SEC and the Big Ten are treating things like we've got Major League Baseball and the AAA and the AA and the single A here, and they're treating the ACC and the Big 12 like AAA members, not on the same footing, unequal revenue sharing. I mean, like it's the craziest thing because the Big Ten refuses to do that in house, unequal revenue sharing. But hey, they're more than welcome to do that here with the other conferences like the Big 12 here and trying to get in a high portion of the funds coming in. So it's not surprising because we've seen this a lot, and it's just going to be like a battle for every dollar in the CFP negotiations and going forward in college football. But like, there's just never going to be enough. It seems like they're always going to be trying to toe that line and push back and stuff, and it's disappointing a little bit from the Big 12 standpoint.
Well, to that, I'm not going to try to be the elitist Big Ten guy, as some have said, but I will say they're looking down a barrel of a gun as well. I'll bring it up again: House versus NCAA, $4 to $5 billion in damages possible. I don't think it's going to end up being that much, but really no one knows what it's going to be. So everyone's kind of acting scared right now, and when you act scared, you tend to not think like, okay, what do people think about my actions? And so I think that they're just reaching for everything they can. And they stated when they formed their advisory committee that they were going to kind of just lead from the front, and they're just dragging everyone kicking and screaming right now. As we'll see as we get further in here, there is some mention of Yormark. It looks like Yormark is starting to assert himself. So I just want to put that out there that the man he's in town and he's playing ball as well. He's got to pick his shots. But that's what I see them doing right now, and it looks bad, and to some degree it is. But I think they're shooting big. It's a negotiation. You aim for more than what you're okay with, if that makes sense. But we're seeing the ugly business side of it. It's all spread out right in front of us, and this is kind of how it's always been. And we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, they're playing their strength right now.
All right, let's get to some comments real quick before we move on.
58%. 58%.
50, yes, 58%. We will get into the distribution of the money pie. I promise.
It's coming. It's coming.
Nice upgrade. Cherry Zero Sugar Coat.
What's up, Greg? That's good stuff right there.
There you go.
He knew.
That's the one. Did you say Utes? I'm not adding that to the soundboard ever. I'm never getting rid of these sounds I have. Summit Hawk lets us know he's drinking Younglings first and then whiskey. Bill G is drinking a Cabernet.
Little cab.
Yes, looks like we got some wine drinkers in chat.
Hey, man. Yeah, it's Friday.
I also drink wine.
Very good choice.
What is your favorite wine out there? Yeah, is it Cabs, Merlot? Throw it out there in the chat. I want to see it.
Mogan David 2020. Guys never had Mogan David 2020?
No, I haven't.
Haven't lived.
I haven't. Oh my God. I gotta live.
All right, let's jump. Some people in the chat will know what MD 2020 is. So
I know. Oh, yes. And oof. That was living, let me tell you. Oof. Some experience.
A hangover in a bottle.
Yeah.
Let's get back to reading some of this article here. CFP format and revenue distribution. Here we go. Any decision on a playoff format is taking a backseat to a more significant piece, the monies. A revenue distribution model has surfaced that would distribute annually to the SEC and Big Ten multiple millions in additional revenue than their two power league counterparts. While an expected move, the figure shocked those who have seen the proposal. In the past structure, the five major conferences mostly split evenly 80% of the CFP's $460 million in revenue. In a proposal socialized with the administrations this week, the Big Ten and SEC would combine to earn about 58% of the CFP's base distribution.
There's that
A figure
percentage.
that will certainly grow in participation distribution as their individual schools earn more revenue for qualifying and advancing through the playoffs. The figure would greatly exceed the ACC and Big 12's combined distribution number, which is expected to be around 31%. The remaining amount, roughly 10%, will be distributed to Notre Dame and the 64 group of five schools.
Man.
That's my favorite part of the article.
Oh my gosh. 64, huh?
Yeah. 65 schools dividing up 10%.
I got to do the math on that. I'll do the math while you're speaking.
All right, you do the math on that. The difference in distribution between the two sets of conferences, the SEC and Big 10, ACC, Big 12, will likely exceed $300 million a year. The Power Two will earn around a combined $760 million versus around $440 million for the ACC and Big 12. Roughly $115 million is slotted for Group of Five. So there you go. Divide that by 65.
Yeah, so it's roughly a little bit over $2 million for the Group of Five.
Enjoy it, Notre Dame. No school's revenue will decrease as the CFP is expected to distribute above $1.3 billion annually in a new television contract with ESPN, or 3 times the amount of its past deal in the 14 version. The participation distribution is only expected to account for $100 million of the overall distribution amount. Teams will earn between $3 to $5 million each for participation and advancing in the playoffs. Considering the distribution percentages, SEC teams will earn as much as $23 million annually, Big Ten $21 million annually, ACC around $13.7 million annually, and the Big 12 around $12.3 million. Group of Five teams are expected to earn a figure just south of $2 million. The contract is expected to include a definitive look-in provision in 2028. The look-in provision can be triggered before that date from any conference realignment. A provision that Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark encouraged to be added according to those familiar with the discussions. A playoff format is further from being scheduled. Let's stop right there. Explain the look-in provision to people, Immaculate.
The look-in provision would be okay. So what he's saying is, say they expand their conference with, say, Louisville, Virginia Tech, North Carolina State, one more, whomever you want to add. One, that's going to weaken the ACC, plus whoever else leaves, and it's going to strengthen the Big 12. A look-in provision allows them to come back and revisit all of this all over again, because there's going to be a different balance of power. So that's what Yormark is saying. Okay, we can deal with this now, but he doesn't want this set in stone, probably because he sees what's coming. And he knows that this is going to have to change. And it's going to change in his favor with his conference's favor. So kind of seems like he's going with us in the short term in order to help bring about that movement. And so that way they can have this look in and redecide how this all goes. So you'll see different numbers than what we're seeing right now.
All right. What do you think about that split?
Are you serious, guys? This split's a joke. $23 million to the SEC, $23 million per school. So Vanderbilt and Mississippi State, $23 million. Big Ten, $21 million. Indiana and Rutgers, $21 million per year in CFP distributions. The ACC, $13.7 million here. So Wake Forest, $13.7 million. And the Big 12 at $12.3 million. So my Utah Utes, the BYU Cougars, and everybody else in the Big 12, 12.3. That's a slap in the face right there. How in the world is the Big 12 getting lower splits in the ACC right now, given this instability?
That's entirely based off of past numbers and participation. And remember, Clemson's going to skew that. There were years when the Big 12 didn't have someone in there, and the ACC was in there year after year after year with Clemson. So they're just basing that number. That number, I wouldn't look at that too much. That number is not set in stone. The future will be determined on a lot of this is going to be like how many teams you have in and how far those teams go, because you're going to get paid per game that you play. So, well, that's an interesting number. There's like they're saying we'll earn as much. This is entirely based off of past performance, and that's off of a 4-team playoff, not a 12-team. So to me, I know people are looking at this and getting a little upset about it, but I would just strike that whole paragraph from this in terms of not letting it sit in your head too long.
So under this, if an SEC team advances to round 2 of the playoffs, their payout for the next game is more too than the other Big 12 team that's advancing, correct? Isn't that your understanding? That no matter what round of the playoffs, the SEC is going to be earning more money because of the conference affiliation?
No, there's 2 different payouts when it comes to the CFP. There's your flat rate payout, which is what they've been talking about. And then there's your participation payout, which is that's going to be purely whoever is in it gets that. Like they're not sure what it's going to be. You know, it's going to vary based upon viewership and whatnot, but they're thinking somewhere between 3 to 5 million a round. So, you know, you might start with 2 teams and they might start with 4, but if you get down to it and your teams make it through, you can make up some of this with just the per team payout, per participation payout, so to speak. So it's 2 different things. And I haven't seen anything that states that participation payout varies based upon what conference you're from.
And it's tough to stomach, guys, to be honest with you. When you're half as much right here, really as the SEC, approximately half as much, it's a slap in the face for the Big Ten. For the Big 12 versus the SEC. So it stinks. I'm glad that Yormark's throwing his hands up because this is bullcrap. And he's got to be fighting this. And definitely that provision, the look-in provision, needs to be considered because the SEC is going to fall apart. And all of a sudden their payouts are going to go from $13.7 million to one day about $6 million here once Florida State, Clemson, everybody jettisons out of the conference. So that absolutely needs to be in. He knows it. He'll negotiate that. But like, hey, getting lowballed here, like 12.3 below the ACC feels like a massive, massive slap.
Well, we've got a super chat here from Kerry and his dog Dash. Let's do a comparisons for Clemson.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook. I said, let him cook.
There you go, Kerry. You got your sounder for the night. Twice. We did a comparison for Clemson, how Clemson fits in the Big Ten. That is now public, and you can find that on the video section of our page. If anybody's interested in going and watching that.
Clemson is the most underrated realignment candidate out there. Underrated. Clemson will not be going to the Big 12 conference. I know that sucks for Big 12 fans, but they just will not be. I really do see them getting in the Big 10 conference. I really see them at a 50% revenue share. 50% revenue share getting Clemson Tigers in the Big 10 conference. It's going to be much like Oregon and Washington, that type of deal, transaction after Florida State jumps over. But Clemson is a fit for the Big 10. Nobody's talking about him to the Big 10. We're going to talk about him more here in a second. But most underrated candidate.
I agree. Let's get some comments in here. Greg's joining us tonight. Good to see you, Greg. Hope you're feeling better. G5 schools equals approximately 1.8 million each. Notre Dame will get ACC team payout. Well, of course they will, because why shouldn't they? They're not even a member of the conference, but they certainly deserve the ACC team payout.
Technically, they are a member of the conference. They're just not a full member.
Yeah. Technically. Yeah, we never have to use the word technically.
I know. That's why I used it.
Student athletes getting paid directly by schools is driving a lot of the power grab, money grab. I think student athletes getting paid directly by conferences is correct, but he makes a good point. Will Oregon or Washington get any of the extra Big Ten CFP money, or are they locked into whatever they agreed to when they joined? I think they would get their payout on the CFP. I can't say for certain because I haven't seen the contracts, but I think that they would get their they'd get their bonus for making it into the playoffs and advancing, and then I think they'd get their flat rate. Tony Lawson will do. I just watched your Miami football review. Very good.
Thank you.
That
much.
also went
Tony.
public today.
Yep.
So
And just a heads up, everybody, the Big 12 model has been developed. The Big 12 model has been actually applied. So be ready for Big 12 candidates for consideration. And first off, looking at Oregon State and Washington State to see if they're indeed fits for the Big 12. I think that'd be a fun one to start off the Big 12 series. We're not done with the Big 10 yet. Big 12 is a different criteria, but very interesting to see how the teams stack rank in the Big 12.
Mr. Monkey says, I missed it. Why is the ACC making more than the Big 12? Again, this is based off the historical empirical data. So Clemson has been into the playoffs significantly more than any Big 12 team, especially when you consider that Oklahoma and Texas are not counted for Big 12 teams. Now they're counted for SEC teams. So that number, like Immaculate said, that number's not anything that's 100%.
No.
This is just they're figuring out the numbers based off of what they have, the data they've had previously. So they're going back to all the former 4-team college football playoffs, figuring out who had how many teams in there and going from there. Replica, while the optics look bad, the revenue gap isn't as big as some people were claiming it would be before we knew of any figures. That's true. I figured it'd be around 60%. It's only 58%.
You're killing me, Moan. You're killing me. 12.3 versus 23. That's what I'm seeing here. That's pretty big, guys. I don't know if you're an SEC fan. It probably doesn't look that big, but on the other side, it's feeling pretty massive.
It's interesting, though. That 58% number, that aligns with the 4AQ kind of theory and equations that it put out. But that would suggest that even if they're looking at moving to lower AQs, that they did not budge off of the payout amounts in terms of that. So even though the AQ numbers for the tournament might have changed, they didn't budge at that time for payouts. And that would also make me wonder, then, did they not budge in terms of voting rights? Because we'll get into that later. But it's just kind of something that's stuck in my head here is that some of these numbers that they're talking about now are actually what it would have been with the 4AQ.
Laura Weiss, does Brett Yormark know ESPN is going to back out from the ACC contract in 2027?
He probably doesn't know, but he probably has a pretty strong opinion.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right.
We'll just leave it at that.
Greg lets us know 100 million out of 1.3 billion will be distributed per performance. 1.2 billion is base distribution. Greg, I'm going to send you an invite to the show. If you want to jump in here, brother, you're more than welcome to jump in here on Friday night.
Yeah, really good stuff, Greg. Right there. I can't believe the G5 schools, though, less than 2 million each. That has got to sting so bad, because how many G5 schools made the leap up to get paid out in the CFP? Like
he said earlier that they made about 1 million a piece. So even though their percentage is going down, they might actually be going up in how much they get paid, which is kind of crazy to think, but that's how much more money there's going to be.
So you're saying like the payment from the CFP?
Yeah, like they're actually going to make more than they did off of the 4 team. It's just the percentage that they're getting is less.
Yes.
That's how numbers can be confusing. Like if someone just shows you the percentages, you're like, oh, they're getting screwed, but like they're actually getting more than they were before. And they're also they're going to get more access. So more money, more access. Overall, it's not terrible for them. It's just, can you get over the percentage number?
So I guess Wazoo and Oregon State are getting less than $2 million in payouts going forward after the first 2 years of the playoff. That's basically what this proposal's suggesting.
That's what they've been fighting for. They've been fighting to get the P5 team payout. So they're trying to get paid the same as the others and not get that G5.
Sure.
So where that is
But
right
as
now,
of today, they're in the G5 realm.
I don't know. Like, kind of, it's looking like he's saying that where that'll end, because this is for 26. The fight that they had going was only for 24, 25, because their whole holdout vote doesn't matter for 26. So, yeah, I would say that they're in the G5 realm in this so far, unless they get pulled up to one of the other two conferences.
Daniel Kopcha. Sadly, I agree with Wild U and like Immaculate View. I'm a Big Ten man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of Big Ten fans who are looking at this going, "Hey, God, are we? That's how it's going to go?" I mean, when I saw all the AQ stuff, I was like, "I don't want that. That's garbage." But we don't have a say in this. It's just how it is.
It's how it is. And that's why you have Brad and Yormark to negotiate. Negotiate hard, use every bit of leverage you can to try to increase those payouts and make that look-in provision something that can be enacted on very easily. Because once Florida State's out of the ACC, you'd imagine that would take a free fall, right? Like, that's a massive chunk of the value of the ACC. And I know this is based on past performance, so maybe Clemson leaving would be even a bigger hammer job on this.
I would say Florida State's actually seen less drop in their viewership numbers, whether they're up or down. Whereas Clemson, last year when they were down, they took a significant hit to their viewership numbers. So to me, Florida State's actually the more sure brand if you're the networks and you're betting on one or the other. Florida State's the better bet.
All right, Scott White from Florida. They need Big 12 term. They need Big 12 long term for viewership.
Yeah, they do. They need Big 12 long. You can't leave the Big 12 out. You have to include them. You have to treat them fair. And I think this is a little unfair. So Big 12 folks keep watching, and they'll lose interest in college football. And don't get cut out, because those are good viewers. Like, there's a lot of big fan bases in the Big 12 conference, and people watch football like crazy in Big 12 countries. So you want to keep those viewership figures. And like, I know that you've probably heard that 80% of viewership goes to the Big 10 and the SEC because of the huge brands and everything. But what happens over time? That's going to erode down, and if you leave other schools out. So you need to grow that pie for the overall health of the sport and financially. So you need to keep the Big 12 strong. And treating them with a 50% payout and this type of stuff, it's kind of a slap in the face, and that's not helping.
All right, Moen, your fancy glasses look like you were getting ready for the solar eclipse in Ohio, April 8th. Sincerely hope you are feeling better and getting well. Well, I'll get well on the 21st when they yank this thyroid out. As for the solar eclipse in Ohio, you don't know Ohio weather. I guarantee you on the 8th, it'll probably be cloud covered and raining. We won't see a damn thing. I can't tell you how many times it's like, get ready for this meteor shower. You go outside, cloudy. Get ready for the aurora borealis, cloudy. But while we're talking about I might as well show my clown suit for tonight. Like this.
Right on.
Somebody earlier was saying it was Saved by the Bell.
I thought that was so funny when I saw that.
Background.
The background just looks very Saved by the Bell.
Professor Moan.
See if Greg finally got it figured out. Did you get it figured out here, Greg?
Not the camera.
Well,
that's fine, because my face is worse than my voice, so that's fine.
Oh, Greg.
Thanks for having me on. I'm enjoying what you guys are saying, what you guys are sharing, and I'm going to be fascinated to see what you all say when it comes to Clemson.
Yeah, that's what I was like. He's going to want to come on to talk Clemson.
Waiting for the Clemson.
Oh, the Clemson. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's jump back to this article, and we'll go right to that spot.
There it is. You passed it.
Yep.
There you are.
Attorneys for Clemson have spent the last several months gearing up for legal action of their own, sources with knowledge of the discussions tell Yahoo Sports. More secession attempts could send the conference into chaos. The outcomes of any Florida State or Clemson exit, can they break free of the grant of rights, may chart a path for other members of the seven, most notably the University of North Carolina, the most attractive of the programs.
And there it is. That's
The
it's kind of
Magnificent Seven come back.
it's what we've been watching, and that's actually what he was talking about just up above that too. He basically named all of them and talked about them possibly even forming their own conference outside just for the short term. But if this is true, and we'll talk real quick, and then we'll see what Greg has to say. But this is what we've been waiting on. We've been waiting, like, where is Clemson? What are they doing? So, according to his sources, they're gearing up. Does this mean, guys, that they got the wink and the nod? That one of the two conferences said, yeah.
I think there's strong indication of that. Wink and the nod, right? Like, why else would they be going down this pathway?
Yeah.
And like we've looked at Clemson, examined them. Like, this is a big brand. This is one of the final big brands that are out there that aren't in the Big Ten or the SEC. So of course they're going to get a wink and the nod. They're a giant brand, guys. And like, and plus for the Big Ten specifically, that brings you into Atlanta. So like we were talking about Georgia Tech earlier. If you don't grab Georgia Tech and you grab Clemson, you're getting Atlanta anyways, an hour outside Atlanta. So you're basically getting that territory without having to grab Georgia Tech. So I think Clemson is a really strong contender. They're sneaky strong, and I'm not surprised at all that they're going down this pathway because, I mean, if they stay in the ACC, they're screwed. They're screwed. They know it. We've all talked about it, so they're going to have to take this path.
Could I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
This is to a viewer we have on Twitch right now, Sophia Adam. The gentleman you're reaching out towards just happens to not be on the show tonight. But by all means, we will let him know, and please stick around and keep watching the show. And but we'll let him know what you're saying. I just wanted them to know that it was seen and we got it.
And I will let Immaculate know at this point that is a bot.
Is it really?
It's a bot.
I can't tell on this side. But they just said question mark, so they're looking like a real person.
Yeah, I know they did. But I'll put in my 2 cents here on Clemson.
Damn me eyes.
Yeah, my 2 cents on Clemson is this. I think this number gets put out there. This all is connected. This number gets put out there as a means to put more pressure on the ACC to bust up. That's all this is. This is a Big Ten. Yeah. Cloak and dagger.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your head on a swivel. We're pushing.
It's one more crack in the foundation. I mean,
yeah. It's just you got to lean on them until they fall. And then
remember,
keep leaning.
This is what's going on with the pack, and this is what Oot can talk about, is how it was in that moment when all of a sudden it started to seem like, is Colorado really going to go? Is this, wait, is this for real? I mean, does this to you seem similar to that at all? Like when the talk started to come around that maybe this was really going to happen?
Yes.
I watched PATC, so I knew Colorado was going to be leaving here.
There,
that's content out there.
What do you say, Greg?
Nobody has taken a bigger L on Clemson than me.
Yeah.
So I've got no answers. All I've got is questions. The Clemson, what Ross Dellinger reported on Yahoo Sports, we got so much of that. In fact, we were so assured that we put out a date range that Clemson was going to pull the trigger. January 20th to February 6th. And we also said during that time that Clemson's gotten a lot of feedback on third-party talks with people who in the past or currently maybe at a lower level, blah, 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 representing some media companies out there. So like Wild Ute has been saying, Clemson for a lot of people is way underrated as a candidate because they are pretty confident that they would have a landing spot in the SEC and the Big Ten or the Big Ten. We have no idea what the bleep happened. It is an incredible mystery. As assured that we knew that Colorado was meeting on May 5th in Chicago, we had the same assurances about Clemson pulling the trigger just a little bit into the first quarter of 2024. So what happened? We don't know. The only thing, and man, we're going to find out at some point, right? We're all going to find out. But the only thing is, we were told, it's Clemson and North Carolina that are more closely. They're the two that are holding hands, not Clemson, Florida State. Even though Clemson knew everything that Florida State was going to deliver on December 22nd. In the Board of Trustees meeting, that is actually Clemson and North Carolina that are really close in this communicating. So and I'm just asking the question. I don't know, but did Clemson hold back because they're waiting for North Carolina for that whole situation to mature with the Board of Governors and all that stuff that's going on? Is that what Clemson is waiting on? We don't know, but I find it, my senses tingled when Ross Dellinger put that in this CFP article about Clemson. And if you read it again, he mentions they have spent the last several months gearing up for the legal action of their own. Ross Dellinger could have put that in so many different ways. He could have written that in so many different ways. Separate paragraph from everything else. He put it out there, and it made it sound like they're still gearing up for action. Why haven't they pulled the trigger is the mystery. And I don't know the answer.
So maybe the whole discussion in North Carolina with the Board of Governors and trying to tie North Carolina State to them, and then the political issues in Virginia, and the whole talk of maybe the SEC has to take those 4 schools, could that have possibly caused Clemson to pause? And would that then mean that Clemson's more likely path is to the SEC? And if so, one last if, does that mean then... Okay, so that would then mean that some of the issues in North Carolina are starting to crack, maybe?
Maybe. I don't know, but that whole Clemson thing, I don't know. I mean, it was so real. It was real, and it didn't happen. So, and let me bring up another point, and I brought it up on my show, but Clemson's not saying anything. Wild Ute, Immaculate, Moen. They're completely quiet. They're not even having. So there's been some Clemson. We know they're not granting any interviews about it with anybody locally, nationally. Nobody about what North Carolina board, the chair of the Board of Regents said, what Florida State has done in the courts. Clemson has been completely quiet for all this time.
Greg, is it similar to the USC situation of a couple of years ago? Didn't they just lock everything down too?
Yes. Clemson, great comment. Yes. USC didn't say anything. For months, not about anything about the Pac-12, nothing about the Pac-12. So finally, when we sent all this documentation to USC 247, and Ryan Abrams, the owner of USC 247, got back to me and says, ever since you sent this stuff out, we've been knocking on the door of USC. Mike Bowen and his associate athletic associate director, whatever you call him, assistant, they couldn't get anything out of USC. And it was weird because USC would always talk to them, no matter about anything. They were completely open. And then they shut down for 8 months. Well, part of that or all of that had to do with, they were getting their ducks in a row. So is that what, if to me, complete silence of Clemson. Complete silence. Not talking to anybody. Not talking to. I can't say the names, but they're not talking to anybody. That's why you haven't seen any articles. That's why you haven't seen any radio interviews. That's why you haven't seen anything. It's amazing, really. And it can't be, to me, logically, it can't be that they're completely silent because they have no interest in pulling the trigger, right? It has to be the other way, right? The other extreme, where they're ready, they're gearing up, as Ross Dellinger said. So, but it's a mystery. Why have they held back? Or are we wrong? The people we talk to, is everybody just wrong and that they never had any plans to pull the trigger until after maybe the first couple results out of the Mecklenburg and Land County court case with the 22nd of March and April 9th? Maybe that was always their plan and we were just got bad information. We were wrong. That could be it too. But at this point, people have been expecting them to pull the trigger. And I think you can kind of read between the lines on the Ross Dellinger article. Like, yeah, people have been expecting this, but it hasn't happened.
Do you guys mind if we go down the speculation zone just for a second with Clemson? Let's say that they are gearing up to leave. say like they do have an avenue in the SEC or the Big Ten. And it's not the Big 12 or staying in the ACC or leaving the ACC and forming its own like quasi ACC super team ACC, but they're just jumping to the Big 12 of the SEC. I'm curious on why, from the SEC standpoint, that Clemson's even a good fit for that conference. Like, I know the Big Ten, I can see the Big Ten, new territory, football brand, but for the SEC that owns Atlanta, that owns South Carolina markets, is there enough upside for the SEC to want to go grab a Clemson?
I don't know if Maul wants to jump in or Immaculate. I think a Clemson going into the courts, challenging the grant of rights may help North Carolina. Them to be the blocking back for North Carolina, if they really are holding hands, and I think they are. So therefore, North Carolina adds incredible value to SEC, that the number one target, and maybe that's what the value that a Clemson could bring, and maybe that's why they've been gearing up for 7 months. But I'm speculating in your speculation zone. Because I don't know.
Absolutely, that's what we do.
Yeah, I mean, because we're like I say, I took the biggest L because this was already supposed to happen. That's the one. Like a Colorado, you know how we all knew that they were at the tip of the spear when it come to Big 12 poaching Pac-12, and sure enough, they got paid that little bonus to do so, right? They got paid $2.5 million more than anybody else because they were the tip of the spear.
Yeah, signing bonus.
Yep. And Clemson might be acting the same way for cloak and dagger type of style with North Carolina and the SEC. But again, it's pure speculation.
Yeah, in terms of brand value, guys, there's really not a lot of value brands left available to the Big Ten and the SEC, and Clemson certainly has a valuable brand.
Yep.
They've won a couple national championships within the last 10 years. So obviously they still have brand value. I mean, obviously Notre Dame is still the most valuable commodity on the market, but the odds of Notre Dame joining someone like the SEC is very low. Whereas the odds of the SEC being, and with Florida State, that Florida State thing, the chalk is that they're definitely going to go to the Big Ten or likely to go to the Big Ten. The biggest brands out there left would be Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, Kansas. So not really a lot of huge brands left available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Clemson one, it's always been a tough one to think like how Clemson would fit really good with the SEC because like if I'm the SEC and I own that territory, that's an aspect of this, right? Like I understand the brand and everything. Clemson's academics are good. They're not elite, right? Like I feel like Miami, which is in Florida, but outside of like Gainesville area, outside of Tampa area, to pair with in North Carolina would be like a much better ad. And I realize the SEC and Miami don't have the best relationship going back. At least that's what's said. But like I feel like there could be a lot better pairings for a value add from like financial standpoint with North Carolina to the SEC than a Clemson package. Like even the UVA possibly at a reduced share over Clemson because it brings you into new markets and everything else that comes with that. So it's just hard for me to get my mind around how Clemson's a slam dunk for the SEC, whereas for the Big Ten, it just makes, like for me, it makes total sense based on market and everything, and new territory to pair that with Florida State and maybe a Miami and Notre Dame. But it's interesting. Maybe it's just driven by the brand, though. Maybe the brand's so strong that's enough as is because of the football quality.
My analysis would be this. If they were leaning towards the Big Ten, I don't know why they would have had to slow down. There's nothing to stop them. It would have been them and Florida State. There's no reason for them to slow down, to not stay ahead of the others. For the SEC, with the stuff that was going on with North Carolina, to me, this leans a little bit more towards Clemson to the SEC, and they had to pause because they weren't sure if that was even going to happen. You know, like what's the timeline going to be with the Board of Governors stepping in, with the politics of Virginia going on? Like, where's our position at? But if they're now ready to start and go out, that tells me that the situation either in North Carolina or Virginia or both, there's maybe some resolve there. But to me, that screams SEC, because I just don't see why you'd have to stop and slow down if you're going to go to the Big Ten. There just doesn't seem to be any reason, unless the Big Ten was really trying to get UNC instead of them, or Miami or something. But to me, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking the North Carolina situation.
And we've got a super chat here from Carrie. The secret to SEC success is badass blue chips on both sides of the ball and 2 to 3 deep.
Yeah.
And in that regard, Clemson with their stadium, with the on TV experience of there, to me, that's what ESPN is going to want to keep into the SEC. It's geography, yes, all these things, but that experience and what it is on TV and everything that you see when it comes to a Clemson game, that's what I think ESPN would want to pay for, to have in the SEC and to have SEC teams go there.
It's probably more of if Clemson goes to the SEC, wanted by the SEC, wanted by ESPN, it's probably more of a defensive move than an offensive adding value move. As Wild Youth said, it's probably more defensive if that's what happens.
Sure.
Again, Clemson is a complete mystery because it doesn't. Their actions haven't met the heavy chatter of those 7 months that Ross Dellinger point. I'm so happy he did that, Ross Dellinger. I'm so glad he put that out on there. But it just adds to the mystery. It just adds to it.
Thank you for the super chat, Carrie. Expedition Greg has a great question here. So when does anyone or everyone think Clemson will pull the trigger to take the ACC to court?
I am not qualified to put out a guess because I already took the L on this. So I'm interested in what the other three gentlemen have to say.
I think as soon as we figure out the venue, once the venue situation gets sorted, if Florida State's allowed to sue them in Florida, if the ACC somehow overrules that and keeps it in North Carolina, that's going to make the difference.
Yeah, I'm thinking if we're going to try to figure out when something could happen for Clemson, I think we need to watch the state of North Carolina. I think that has probably had a bigger effect on this than we really know. I think the Board of Governors got involved with all of this for some reason. I mean, there's the obvious reasons, but I think there's probably some, things going on behind the scenes that we don't know about that really caused them to come in and maybe hold up the process a little bit. So, maybe this was North Carolina and Clemson were just going to do it, and that's it. Maybe they were going to grab Virginia. Who knows? I don't know. But I think that I'll be watching for something to come out of the state of North Carolina.
I think shortly after the next news drops where Florida State punches back at the ACC, and it creates a little bit of destabilizing momentum. It's already happened once, and it's back and forth. But as I know from the Pac-12 side and stuff, once you have so much momentum, it just falls on itself. And it's getting to that point with all the swirling around, with all the discussion. I think more bad press from the ACC side in that lawsuit is the time that Clemson jumps in to create more destability and really ride that momentum train and stuff to make the ACC want to squawk and settle. So I think that they're going to be more opportunistic about it. Yeah.
Patrick wants to know, isn't Notre Dame bound by contract to join the ACC if they decide to join a conference? I will start here. If we've learned anything, contracts don't mean shit. They're not worth the paper they're printed on. Everything's negotiable. And if Notre Dame wants to join the Big Ten, all they have to do is say, we want to join the Big Ten. The next day they would be in.
The answer to that, and you can Google Heather Dinich, ESPN. If Notre Dame takes all of their sponsored sports out of the ACC, they can join any other conference. What Notre Dame can't do is they can't take their football program out of independence and join the Big Ten or the SEC or the Big 12 and keep their other sponsored sports in the ACC. Heather Dinich explained that. She's ESPN. She said Notre Dame is not bound to join the ACC football if they take all the other sponsored sports out. And they would do that if they were to join the Big 12, SEC, or the Big 10. So no, they're not bound by that contract.
Okay.
Yeah, let's stop on Notre Dame for a second. Greg, you had a PATC live show, I think earlier today, where you're speaking about Notre Dame. A couple days ago, we were speaking of the Notre Dame after the Dartmouth case too, and we should bring that up real quick. So Notre Dame's in a position right now where they could have a vote to unionize, just like Dartmouth, because they're a private school. They're not affiliated with other public schools like, that Northwestern scenario and stuff. They're on independent island here. So technically that vote could happen tonight, right? As far as the unionization. Is that your understanding?
No, it's not my understanding. Maybe Immaculate or Moen can. I don't believe that can happen overnight because nobody has gone to the mat. NLRB, this was just a case between them and Dartmouth. This was not even a case between them and the Ivy League. This was just a case between NLRB and Dartmouth. Now, that USC case, the National Labor Relations Board, is versus USC, Pac-12, and the NCAA. So if that goes pear-shaped in the perception of those who don't want this to happen, then that's going to wrap that story is going to be, if Dartmouth was a bomb, this USC case is going to be like 5 nuclear bombs going off. So I don't know about that. I don't know, the timing and all that. But my whole thing is, if the student athletes become represented by a union or some other organization that's somehow not a union, but whatever, somebody's representing the student athletes, probably unions, and they're negotiating. See, I think it's going to be per conference, right?
Right.
I think the conference. Okay. Now, I don't know how a single entity like Notre Dame can, when they collect a bargain with their student athletes, they're going to be in a lot tougher situation. And this has been explained to me, but for example, in the Big Ten, I'll just take Big Ten because that's a long conversation that I got into. Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, the top echelon of the Big Ten. If this goes in negotiation between the conference and the student athletes with the union, the Buckeyes, the Wolverines, and the Lions love to have that lower half of the Big Ten because the whole data is combined. That everything will be combined. It's like Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball. You know, the players have a strong union in Major League Baseball. You notice there's no salary cap, right? Very strong union, Major League Baseball. Lots stronger than the NFL union that's representing the players and other sport leagues. Well, when they get in negotiations, you know, they're not it's not just about Yankees. It's Yankees, Royals, Dodgers, Twins, right? The combination of high. So what was explained to me is Notre Dame is up a creek without a paddle because their position with the student athletes is not going to be anywhere the position that many of the schools in these conferences are going to be at. That was my main point of that Notre Dame show. When finally it happens, that representation, the negotiation is going on between conference and representation, how's Notre Dame going to fare in that? And people don't think they're going to fare well at all.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Finally, Indiana's adding some value to the Big Ten, guys.
Yes, and yes. See,
They filled their role.
Look at that. After all that heat thrown at them, all of a sudden they're going to save you a bunch of money. That's awesome.
Speaking of money, we got a super chat here from our friend Ryan Willie. Good to have you here, Ryan.
The evil Badger.
The evil Badger. SEC has low academic standards. That's their secret.
They've got this game all.
Someone might call you elitist. I wouldn't be throwing that out there, brother. Thank you for the super chat.
It's funny. As far as Notre Dame goes, I wouldn't expect that to pop up anytime soon. Where I think we're going to go is the Dartmouth appeal is going to get looked at. And the union there has already stated that they've had talks with people at all the other Ivy schools and then some. So have they talked with some folks at Notre Dame? Maybe. Watch that appeal. Watch how that goes. If that gets struck down, I would expect dominoes to start dropping in multiple directions. Does that mean Notre Dame? Honestly, I don't know. It's possible. But I would expect every single school in the Ivy League to all of a sudden have a union popping up. And it isn't just going to be for the basketball team. I mean, this is going to spread to every team.
Yeah.
So it's going to metastasize real quick.
And what do you guys think the Ivy League schools are going to do? Or I'm sure not all, maybe not all of them follow the same direction because I don't have a clue.
Not.
Like, are they going to they might have some really, really good club teams going forward here, right?
Could be. They might drop back.
Yeah.
They might drop sports, and then we can make them be clubs. They might go to Division III, where scholarships aren't really a thing, and they can, point out the amount of money we're making doesn't because you're an employee, it doesn't guarantee you a certain pay rate. That's exactly what people don't quite understand. It's like, okay, you're going to be an employee. Now we get to figure out how much you're worth.
Yeah,
there's no guaranteed pay here, and so they're going to have to decide: do we want to go up to where we can actually make money with sports, or do we want to go the club route, which they can't do right away? And Dartmouth definitely can't do it with their basketball team. But we could see some schools try to get ahead of this and doing that before they even having this pop up. And that might be the next ball to drop, is private schools start dropping programs to club sports. And that'll be a sad day if that happens.
We have no idea what Dartmouth's going to even negotiate on the union side. And this is so preliminary. Like these kids aren't idiots, right? These Dartmouth kids are Ivy League students. Like I think that they probably come in with something reasonable, maybe a small ask and stuff. It's not too much money. We don't know what the ask is going to be. It's going to be a lot different than the ask at Ohio State or in the Big Ten and everything. So what I'm kind of curious about though is like now that have employment status, like, will minimum wage come into play if they don't even negotiate a financial,
Yeah, it's going to be like an hourly wage is what it's going to
Yeah, like, I mean, like, and do labor laws come in with a minimum wage? If there's like no wages, they want, well, maybe they just want a scholarship. Maybe that's really the ask that they come in, like the fair market value of a scholarship. Like, how's that all going to come into play?
Will they strike? Imagine that. Like, imagine they all announce at a basketball game, we're going on strike, and they all just walk out the door.
Imagine.
Well, what leverage do they have? Like, who cares? Like, if they did that, like, does Dartmouth really
I know.
care? Like, they have zero leverage.
It would be a spectacle, but yeah, it probably wouldn't do much because right now there's not going to be a whole lot of money in it. There is value. There's, providing a cultural experience for the kids on campus. They do have a small deal with ESPN. They have like an ESPN Plus deal. The whole Ivy League does. So there is that. They are providing content to a business partner. So there's some money there. How much? I mean, it's not a lot, but there is something that they could lose if they don't provide that content. So I don't know, man. Like this, there's a lot of different opinions on this. Let's take your guess.
Imagine if Alabama players like had a strike before an LSU game or something because they didn't like how the union negotiation was going. Like, we're in a world where that could happen. Like, Alabama football is like, oh, we're not playing today. There's 120,000 fans waiting for the game. Like, that's a lot. They all
come out on the sidelines in their street clothes.
Right. That's leverage right there. I mean, Dartmouth players don't have that, but some other players do from some other schools.
What if they have PTO and decide one day they don't want to practice? Just say, hey, I'm taking a PTO day.
Right.
How's a coach going to handle that?
I might have to write an email to Mark Coyle, Minnesota's athletic director. The day before the Gophers play the Buckeyes or the Hawkeyes, strike, baby, strike. Get out of there. Get out of there.
Yeah, that's how you're going to try to keep that trophy.
That's right. Get out of there. Get back on the bus.
We're gonna get that trophy back before this hits.
Yeah.
Karma's going to get you for that one.
Got a comment from Devil Frog here. Can we call balls and strikes by pointing out that Ross Dellinger is simply carrying Greg Sankey's water to maintain access?
He's pulling a Dodd. I mean, sorry, did I say that? I mean, it's pretty rough. That's how their business works. So
yeah. Nathan Campbell asked Mo and asked Greg if it's because of UNC chancellor hiring is the reason that they had the balls at Clemson.
Why they stalled at Clemson?
Why they have the balls? Why suddenly they're stepping up? It looks.
I read that incorrect. Thank you, Moen.
It's kind of what we were touching upon earlier too.
I don't know, Nathan. Great question. Yeah, I don't know how to answer that. If one of you guys want to take that, I think that could be part of it.
That's kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier. Is that it feels to me, or at least right now, that the Clemson choice is tied into things getting hung up a little bit in the state of North Carolina.
Great question, Nathan. I don't have an answer.
I have an answer, but it's not right. So
that's
we'll
good.
Go. Yeah, I'll just say
join
yes,
the crowd,
and then it's not right. At least I'm telling you it's not right. I'm not lying to you about it.
Well, now that you said it's not right, based upon some of the stuff that was going on for you back when we were doing Pick'em, that you might be right now.
That might be right. That's true. Very true. Kazoo question with current big and SEC teams. If you take what you consider teams 6 through 13 from each and made a 16-team conference, would you all consider that a power conference? Well, no.
This is a trick question.
No. My answer's no.
I see your trick question.
My answer's yes.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's so many good brands now in the Big Ten. Like, if you're looking at like number 6, 7, and 8, If you're
Okay.
looking at like a UCLA, you're looking
right,
at
then.
probably like an Iowa.
It would
What
be
are we
a power. It would be a power conference. It'd be a lower power. It would be a lower paying power conference. But
Yeah,
Would it be above or below the Big 12?
I'm not answering that.
I would have to say
It's not a trick question. I know that, Casey. I'm just giving you trouble. It's Friday night. I've had a couple drinks. But seriously, that to me is where I would go then from that question is it would be a power conference, but where would it be in comparison to the Big 12? Because it might be below it, but it might be above it.
I think it would be above it.
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there'd be better brands. It'd be more top heavy. It wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be like a parody conference like it is now. It'd be much more top heavy.
I think the bottom would be lower, but the top would still be heavier.
Yeah.
Because that's how much parity I see right now in the Big 12. Like it's like this straight line. We're going to see it.
You'd be adding like the Florida Gators in the SEC. Like they're borderline 6 team.
I mean,
right
you'd
now,
have
right?
Iowa,
Like, Texas.
you'd have
You got Texas, Oklahoma, LSU, Georgia, Bama. Like you've got like have an Auburn. You'd have. I mean, you'd have some dang good football teams still.
You could have an Oregon.
You could have like Washington.
You could have a Washington. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would be actually a pretty strong conference.
Who got that one?
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a great question.
Oh,
I mean, that's a great thought experiment. Maybe we'll have to put that together and figure out how you come up with that, and then we'll take a look at what that hypothetical conference is later on. Cleveland Rocks. University of South Carolina is going to feel like Texas A&M did after learning Texas joined the SEC. If Clemson joins too, they will be pissed. I agree, they'll be pissed, but what are they going to do? They're not going to jump out of that wealthy conference. They just have to dry their eyes with those $100 bills.
I think Georgia would be. I think Georgia would be kind of upset as well, right?
It's not too far away. I mean, are we going into a time when that changes? I mean, that's always been the case. I mean, that's accepted logic. Like plenty of this come out that there's been blockings of certain schools by a block of voting schools within these conferences. But as we go forward with these larger conferences and new deals and getting teams into the playoffs for pay and possibly, now with Peyton, what I've been talking about, maybe in the future having expanded conference postseasons. Does that change the equation at all, though, guys? Does that make it so where maybe a Florida might loosen up a little bit, a Georgia a little bit, and say, if we're going to expand this big anyways, don't we want to make sure that the Big Ten's not coming down here and getting multiple brands down here? I mean, is it more helpful or more hurtful to them? Is it more helpful in that new world to grab Clemson, even though maybe in the past they did everything they could to block it? Like, what do you think? I mean, I kind of think that might be better to pull them in.
Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah,
go ahead, Greg.
I think I agree. I mean, I think this whole SEC expansion might be as much defensive as it is offensive.
And those are good rivalry games too. I mean, now that we're learning, that's what the networks are looking for. Clemson, South Carolina, Clemson, Georgia, Clemson, Florida. You could go through that, Clemson, Alabama. These could be big, good potential rivalry games of the future, and those are the money games for what we're going into.
Well, think of it this way. So say that you're the Georgia Bulldogs. Would you rather be recruiting in the Atlanta market against a Clemson that's an SEC Clemson in your own conference or a Big Ten Clemson? I think that you'd rather recruit against a Big Ten Clemson than an SEC Clemson. So from a recruiting standpoint for both South Carolina and for Georgia, I think they're going to push back on that hard.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, that you'd almost have to be an insider to know this one because both sides of it are
Yeah,
pretty good.
Clemson just screams SEC team. If you didn't know who they were and you listed all the things they are, they're an SEC team. Rock and Rant has gifted one membership to the College Football Mafia.
Winner.
And that went to Nathan Campbell. Nathan Campbell, make sure you thank Rock and Rant in the chat for that. I'm sure they would appreciate that. Mike Smith has been a member for 2 months. Good to have you, Mike. Still need to send us a picture of you and those Daisy Dukes, but we'll let you go on that one for tonight.
You know, as a Big 12, as a ESPN and Fox, if the ACC implosion happens, I mean, Louisville, Cincinnati, West Virginia, Pittsburgh. I mean, these games not only help sell each other, especially Pittsburgh, sell their stadium, but the Louisville, Cincinnati, these are good network rival games. And they're more valuable in the Big 12 than what you can squeeze out of Pittsburgh and Louisville in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
So you also got, you got to look at that as well. It's like there's some value, and I don't mean to sound so, this is how it is, but there is some juice out there for the Big 12. And then I think that's why Brett Yormark is in that article.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like the pack scenario. Remember when you were always saying, Greg, that these parts of the pack were more valuable than the sum?
Yeah.
You were on that all the time, but the pack, that turned out to be true. And it's like the same thing with the ACC.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Tony Lawson wants to know if the panel is going to discuss the Utah NIL rules proposal. I will let you handle that, you.
Yeah, so this is like in the state of Utah, and I've seen a little bit about this, but like the state level wanted more oversight over like the NIL, and the disclosing of like the NIL contracts to be public for the players in the state of Utah. NIL contracts cannot be like private under board and stuff; they need to be in the public eye. So there was a ruling that actually made that a law, so it was for more transparency in the state. So I don't know what's the fallout from that yet per se, but I think it's a unique ruling.
Can I ask Wild you a question?
Sure, go ahead.
You probably talked about this, and I apologize. You guys have probably had shows on this and everything. What is this? I read a little bit about it. What is this 99-year Big 12 bylaw, but Utah didn't sign it? Brouhaha that's going on. I don't think it's much of anything, but correct me if I'm wrong. What is going on with that?
Yeah, so Bill Farley, he was on the show a couple of weeks back.
Okay.
He does investigative work where he gets FOIA requests, and he requests those multiple months in the past. And when he gets the information, he digs into them and looks to see if there's any nuggets of detail. He's found a bunch of good details in the ACC contract with Florida State, and he dug into some of the agreements that the Big 12 signed with Utah, the language of those after 6 months or whatever of requesting that information. And he noticed that when Colorado jumped over to the Big 12, they signed the 99-year membership agreement for the conference, which was kind of standard place to do for new members to sign. And then when Utah came over, Utah wanted to negotiate out of that 99-year membership agreement. So they actually, in negotiations, they got an exemption from it. And so the question, though, remains is what's the time period of that exemption? Because really what that means, the 99-year membership agreement boils down to one thing. It's the exit, some of the penalties for leaving the conference equals 2 years of revenues. Yeah. That's basically the big idea there. So Utah, for a period of time, and it's still unclear what's that period, might not have to pay the 2 years of exit penalties if they were to leave the conference. But again, like the clarity on that date, what the commencement date is a little vague. And so it's under interpretation. Some folks think that period ended when Utah actually formally signed the Big 12 agreement last year. And some folks think that continues on till the Pac-12 dissolves and Big 12 actually formally plays in the Big 12 in going into this fall. So technically Utah might be out of the woods still, and they could leave for a different conference without paying the 2 years of revenue payout. So that's a little bit of the overview. There's no clear answers right now, but there's what the discussion is.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Hidden Hawaiian wants to bring up the True TV deal. I don't know if anybody caught this today. This kind of got buried a little bit, but True TV is moving to basically sports programming moving forward.
Purely sports?
I've heard Impractical Jokers will be moving to TBS, which was their lead show, and that True TV will be focusing more on sports. Now, I don't know what they really have sports-wise other than the NCAA tournament and AEW wrestling. So, I mean,
which is better than WWE.
Debatable.
I'm just trying to get Mullen upset.
Well, that's interesting. That means they're going to have to sign some deals.
You would think if they, because there's not enough sports for them to cover. So, wouldn't be shocked to see them signing some or be out there in the marketplace looking to sign some deals, whether it's, I mean, they are hooked up with TNT and TBS. So, I mean, you're going to get some NBA highlights, maybe an NBA game here or there. I just don't think I don't think there's enough there to really fill that time unless you want to watch repeats of AEW wrestling.
Which you should.
They've got to get into the college game then, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of content out there to get. Like, they could get down into G5s if they want to get started. They could do a deal with maybe the Big 12. I mean, Big 12's got extra content to sell. That's what I would say. I would say watch for a Yormark deal. That screams Yormark. I think some folks in chat were even saying that, so we could probably got some chat about that. But I would agree with them. I think I'd watch for a deal with Yormark in the future on that. Then
need more inventory.
That's a good spot to be. I mean, even if it's just a small payout, it's a payout. They're looking to scratch closer to the top two in any way possible. So if something like that comes on, he's probably already picked up the phone and called him.
All right. Sergeant Pickles, Oregon and UW are top 6 brands in the Big. Fight me, Immaculate.
Well, you're coming to Iowa City, so you're going to get your wish. But it definitely could be. It's just, even as we even add more, will that still continue to be the case?
Hidden Hawaiian wants to know what happens if the Big 12 team wins the CFB Natty next year. And you giving the Jazz hands.
It's a great question.
Man.
I mean, people are pooing on it, but
I will be rooting for it. That would be
I'd love it.
Yeah, that would be great.
It would help for the future, that's for sure. Maybe we'd get paid a little bit more than 20. Is it 12.7 again? Going back to that original conversation we were having. 12.7 versus the SEC's 23. That would bridge that gap a couple $100,000.
Who could that be though? Who do we think?
If
it would be Utah.
If Rising stays healthy, Jalen Daniels stays healthy, a lot of good Big 12 quarterbacks got to stay healthy. So
Utah, Kansas. Do we think Arizona might have
Kansas
a shot?
State, Avery Johnson. Although that offensive line is completely new for Kansas State, so
it's going to be a gauntlet, though. I mean, if you survive that and you come out on top and you go in, you could say that your team's definitely been tested.
Yeah.
Maybe even better than some of the teams in the Big Two. Like, I would say it. Iowa has a pretty good schedule this year. So I think that there's some schools that could argue they have tougher schedules in the Big 12 this year than Iowa has. It just is what it is.
I think there's only one team that could win a game in the playoffs, and that's the Utes this year. I realize lots of bias and everything here, but looking at the squads, looking at the past pedigree with rising success, I could totally see the Utes get in the playoff and actually compete and maybe win a game in the playoffs. As far as winning the Natty, multiple rounds, that's tough. That's tough to see.
Yeah, you got a quarterback there who's doesn't have a good health situation, and that's going deep in a season. That's unheard of deep. So, we'll see.
And plus, it sucks though. Like if you did win the Big 12, having a first round bye and playing in a bowl game rather than home. I'd love to have a home game, and not having an opportunity if you win conference kind of stinks.
Yeah, let's be honest here. There's one team that's slated to win the national championship next year, and that's Ohio State.
Ooh.
Who's your quarterback?
Ooh.
Well, hey, listen, Will Howard, Julian Sion, Aaron Noland. We've got plenty of quarterbacks. Devin Brown.
I just don't know these names.
We've got more
As
stars
long
on
as time
quarterbacks than
holds-
you got on your offensive line.
As long as time holds, as long as time holds after spring game, goes in the portal and comes to Minnesota, I'm fine with whatever you have as quarterback.
Yeah. Keep waiting.
As Rock and Rand says, best team money to buy. It's like, but they should have bought a quarterback. Damn it.
Well, they did. Will Howard is an accomplished quarterback.
Yeah,
Listen, he's going to be even better when you got Jeremiah Smith out there catching passes for you. You've got Emeka Ibuka coming back. You've got two of the top 3 running backs in America in your backfield.
I mean, yeah, like everything else is stellar. Like, no doubt. That's why I said that. I'm like, well, who's your quarterback? Because everything else is freaking amazing. And Ohio State should win the championship this year across the board. It's just, who's going to be the quarterback? That's my question, and that's a pretty big question.
Yeah.
Who's going to be Michigan's quarterback?
Who cares?
Michigan's in for a world of hurt this year, guys.
Yeah. I think Michigan's in for a rude awakening.
They just lost another
We're
coach.
laughing at them as they just won the national championship. And the Buckeyes, they do get a break in the schedule. They do not play the Golden Gophers, so advantage Buckeyes.
It's true. We've got to deal with scrub teams like Oregon Ducks at Autzen Stadium.
Yep.
Hey, Greg, if you had to throw a probability on it, what's the odds that Minnesota gets into the playoff with one of the seeds that the Big Ten is going to bring to the table?
In what year?
We'll say this next year and like the 12 and then the 14 with like the more berths that we're talking about. Do you think that –
I don't know.
Let's put it this way. What's the probability Minnesota gets into the playoff over the next 5 years?
It's not 0%.
No,
it's not zero. It's not zero. I mean, that 2019 team would have made it.
Yeah.
And that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, but that was with the Big Ten West.
Yeah, but if Tyler Johnson would not have dropped that pass on the end zone line against Iowa, they would have been 11-0 going into last game. That team, but that team would have beaten a lot. They beat Penn State that year. I mean, they would have beaten. That team would have made it or could have made it. That's fair to say. They finished 10th in the country. 5% chance, maybe. I don't think it's. I think
not rowing the boat very hard there with that percentage.
Well, I mean, I'm being realistic here. Now, if I'm going to put my Gopher uniform,
I got to give you trouble.
My sweatshirt on, and I can put my Gopher hat on. Yeah, then that percentage is going way up. No, I mean, it's just look. Have you seen the schedules in the Big Ten? Have you seen those schedules? I mean,
Wisconsin's got a weak schedule. We saw that.
Yeah, well, don't bring up the evil Badgers. They've got Tyler Van Dyke, for goodness sake. That team's going nowhere this year.
Nice.
Yes.
What about where's Iowa going this year?
I don't know. I mean, I got to see Cade McNamara. I got to see if he's healthy. Their defense is going to be special. But I got to see Cade McNamara, man. I mean, who's your backup?
I Actually, I really hope it's not Deacon Hill, and I hope it's the young kid that played one quarter in the bowl game and looked better in that one quarter than Deacon Hill did all year long. I swear, I wanted to throw something at the TV. So
Wild you. Let me answer that question about this Gophers team after I watch Max Brosmere in spring football for the Gophers. He's the quarterback. We have no idea. We have no idea if the kid's going to be looking for a hole to lay in Big Ten football, or if he's going to excel like he did in FCS. We just don't know.
Hey, Greg, maybe you should change your motto to "Ski You Maybe."
Wow. It's Sky, by the way. Sky
All
you,
right. Sky you, Mobby.
Victory, University of Minnesota. Dakota language, Sky you, ma.
All right, if you say so. Devil Frog says they'll stop getting pissed. This is referring to Clemson when those SC versus Clemson rivalry checks.
Yeah.
Yep. Clemson, SC, Clemson, Florida, Clemson, Georgia. There's a lot right there in that local area.
Sergeant Pickles, if Notre Dame is out for now and Big only goes to 20, give me Florida State and Clemson. I don't want Notre Dame to be out. Give me Notre Dame.
He said for now.
For now. I don't care. Bend the knee.
All right, guys. Hey, Big Ten guys. All right, I've got a question for all three of you. Okay, so Notre Dame, the crown jewel. I know how bad you want Notre Dame. Would you be willing? Let's play a little hypothetical here. Would you be willing to bring Notre Dame into conference if they wanted for a period of time 125% media payout?
No.
Bone. That's a fair question. Like not forever. I mean,
not.
if you're reducing Oregon's media payout by 50,
I want them to bend the knee. I don't want us to bend the knee to them.
Yeah.
We might let them have a special deal with NBC.
That's a completely reasonable deal right there, guys. Like if you want to bring them over so bad, then just give them 125
maybe
for 5
Big
years.
12 would give them 125%, but 125% of a future projection of 100 million is like
25 mil.
That's a
so
lot.
They get 25 mil for say 5 years, and then all of a sudden it washes out the next media contract, just like it is with Oregon.
Yeah. The only thing golden in the Big Ten is the Golden Gophers. The Golden Domers are not going to come in here and take 125%. They can have 125% of nothing. That's about what they're going to get.
That's right. Partial share. Ryan Willie with the $2 super chat. Ooh, Wisconsin will make the CFP before Minnesota.
Boo.
But he's right with Luke Fickell. Luke Fickell, Mike Vrabel's hanging around that program.
Boo.
That might be a good game this year. Maybe.
I think Wisconsin's going to shock some people this year.
Shockingly bad, baby.
Yeah, I think that defense is going to be locked down.
Iowa scored 15 points on them last year. How good is their defense going to be?
Yeah, that's true. If Iowa
come on, like it was like our high score of the year against them. Their defense is terrible.
Hidden Wine. If I'm your mark, I'm making a deal with True TV to get more slots and money. And Jim F. with the new joint venture with Disney and Fox, I could see WB, TNT, TBS, True TV going after the Big 12 for media rights.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Good point.
I mean, to me, they go after the Big 12, or the Big 12 might come after them. I mean, if you're your mark, you don't want to sit back and watch and see where they go. I think you want to.
You're talking like tier 3 content, right? You're not talking like tier 1 or 2 content to put on True TV. Like the stuff that goes on ESPN Plus would move to True TV, I'd hope.
Yeah,
True TV doesn't have very good distribution.
Yeah, tier 3 is kind of these days. It's kind of hard to judge that, but yeah, it would be after, like Fox and ESPN would take whatever they want first, and since you guys don't have a conference network, you'd have a lot of content to then just be like, you want any of this? We just got it sitting here. We'll sell it to you. I mean, it's to me, that's a no-brainer for the Big 12 because you guys don't have a conference network. Like just
100%, right?
Yeah,
Like
just
Warner Brothers have a
jump on it.
partnership. Yeah.
Get it sandwiched right in there between Lizard Lick Towing and Bait Car.
Yeah, I mean,
Sweet.
you're getting zero for that content now, so go
And
grab
True TV does have a pretty big clearance.
Yeah, I mean,
they're on a
that's
lot
like,
of basic packages.
it's going to be a chunk of change. Like, I don't know how much, but I mean, it's instead of making zero for something, you're making money for it. That's a pretty good deal.
Arnengad. Since 2012, all the Big 12 teams signed the 99-year grant of rights, including Texas and Oklahoma.
Yep, that's when it happened. It was right after Texas A&M and Missouri left for the SEC. They said, okay, enough of this stuff.
I think that this is a nothing burger, guys. I really do. I don't think that it's that material. I think it got blown out of proportion on social media. I think people tried to read into it something that really wasn't there. I just don't see it being much. And like whatever exemption Utah got is going to be expiring out probably very likely very soon if it even exists. It probably expired out last year. But I just don't see it really mattering that much.
I think that had to do with the fact that Stanford was trying to talk those four schools into going with them to the ACC instead. And at the time, Utah was like, we don't really know which one of these is the better option. We want a little bit of time window here to be able to weigh this. We'll jump now, but we're still not sure. And I think Yormark, as we've seen, they thought that they were losing it. So I think at that point he's like, yeah, sure, what the hell, why not? Like, go ahead. I mean, you're not going to want to go join the ACC. So I think he took his odds and gave him that. And I think that was a great move on his part. And if people are thinking that was a bad move, well, I think it'll play out in the end that it was a good move.
All right, we got to take care of a little business here. We've got 348 people watching across all platforms. If you all could give us a like and a subscribe. If you want your question definitely answered, it's going to have to be a super chat. We've got over 1,100 comments in the chat tonight. It is blowing up. If you want to become a member or leave a super chat, all you got to do is go down to the little $ in the corner, and I won't bring it up for the rest of the show. R Webb, evening guys, and my Georgia Tech condolences to Immaculate. As for True TV, the Big East fixed renewal has been awfully quiet.
Oh
yeah,
man,
Georgia Tech.
Hey, so Greg, do you know the Georgia Tech game that we play?
I've caught wind of it. Yeah, I can see you guys working those elbows here.
So yeah, we had a video earlier. Georgia Tech fit video, and Immaculate opined on that one. So,
okay,
see if they're a fit in the Big Ten.
True TV does some tennis, boxing, and motorsport. Well, you know what? I don't want to get off on a rant here, but I'm going to have to. And this is a college football thing. But boy, did boxing used to be great, and now it's terrible. What
I don't know. I
sunk to when it's
I can't
Logan
wait.
Paul versus
I want to
Jake
watch it.
Paul.
I want to see
versus
Tyson blow his face up. I mean, not that I don't have anything against him. I feel bad for the guy that he's actually taking this. I think Tyson's, but Greg disagrees.
Yeah, well, because you're a hot guy, I'm a gopher.
Okay.
57-year-old men don't have legs and they don't have a gas tank.
Any other 57-year-old man, I'd agree with you.
Yeah, it's not going to be a competitive fight.
If anybody wants to do themselves a favor, go look on YouTube. Irish Mickey Ward versus Arturo Thunder Gotti. Greatest trilogy in boxing history.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
We shall see.
Our boy Summit Hawk has gifted 5 memberships to the College Football Mafia.
Give that man his Jayhawks fluff.
There we go.
Thank you, Summit Hawk.
Thank you so much, Summit Hawk. You're a legend in the community. We appreciate you doing that for us. Yep, sorry I had to go on that boxing rant, but I like
who did he get those gifts to?
Those gifts went to Clint Moses, Dan Miter, Brandon Unruh, Insane Mob, and Benjamin Griffin. If you're in the chat, make sure you thank Summit Hawk. If you're not in the chat and you're watching this video on demand, make sure you thank him in the comments. I'm sure he would appreciate it.
For those of you with new memberships, a new video just came out, a GT video, so be sure and check that out if you'd like.
Shonsky, our favorite Cougar. I mean that. Think about it, guys. You're talking about Iowa going to the playoffs. They had the 134th worst offense in the country. The Big Tent sucks.
I love Shonsky. But that's just the whole point of it. Like, they already had the 134th worst. I think it was actually 133rd, if we're going to be technically correct here, sir. And they still made it to the championship game, and they still played Michigan's offense tougher than anyone else all year long. If it wasn't for our damn failed punter quarterback, give him the ball inside the 20 like 2-3 times, they probably may have been in single digits in points. And so now we actually have a real offensive coordinator coming in who he plays like an option offense. Like, can you imagine that? We're going to have the option offense in Iowa. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to be watching when that happens. But even if we can just get that to be a mediocre offense, might make it in that conference championship game again.
The first conference game Iowa has in 2024, they got to come to Huntington Bank Stadium. That's an L. So right away you start 0-1 on the season. But have you noticed what team people don't talk about when they're trying to analyze who's going to make the playoffs out of the Big Ten?
Probably Minnesota, because
no. But
Penn State,
Nebraska.
Oh,
is Nebraska going to make the playoffs in 24, 2025, 2000?
They're going to have a freshman quarterback. No, next year maybe. They're going to have to play that kid, or he's gone.
Yeah, they're going to have to play him.
They're going to have to play him, but he's not going to be great.
And I'm sorry. You guys want to give a little elbow to the Minnesota Golden Gophers all the time. Minnesota owns Nebraska. They've beaten Nebraska 5 straight times. They've beaten Nebraska more than Nebraska has been beaten Minnesota. Everybody has owned Nebraska in the Big Ten West. But you know what? They're always the child that always gets the attention from the preseason Big Ten media polls and everything. And every year, they just can't even compete in the middle of the Big Ten West. So I gotta see it to believe it when it comes to the Cornhuskers.
It's that big brand talking.
Yeah.
I think Rule will get it done at some point in time, maybe next year. But he has committed himself to a kid in order to get him there, which I get it. You got to do that. He's building, but he's going to have to play him as a true freshman. And because that kid has changed his commitment, 20 times?
Yeah.
I mean, he's going to have to play him, and it's going to be ugly.
It's fascinating because the kid has an unbelievable arm. Go watch his high school tape. I mean, that ball comes out of his kind of like Rattler. Kind of reminds me of Dan Marino back when he was quarterback of Pittsburgh. You young guys probably don't remember that, but when the ball came out of the ball comes out of Dylan Raiola's hand. But he's a little bit loosey-goosey on some other intangibles. Maybe a touch on the immature side, which most 19-year-old kids are, but that's going to be fascinating to watch.
Castro is going to be his nightmare.
Yeah, we don't.
The big question.
Gophers don't play Nebraska this year, so.
Yeah, the big question is, where does Dylan Raiola play next year?
Wasn't he committed to Georgia? Wasn't that the place?
He was committed to Ohio State before that, and he was committed to.
And that's why he'll play this year.
And how many high schools did he go to?
Yeah, he went to 4.
Yeah.
4.
What?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was committing all over the place.
That's why I say it's
pretty
much
a little loosey-goosey.
How much did Herb Street impact that recruiting, guys? Honestly, I don't know if you guys heard that story where Herb Street got on the horn with the father there.
Maybe a little bit, maybe none at all. I mean, I think what had more effect on it was the fact that Beck came back.
I think the fact that his uncle had a job there.
In Nebraska?
That's what got him looking there in the first
O-line
place.
coach.
But
O-line coach.
he was committed to Nebraska, and he decommitted to commit to Georgia. And then Beck came out and was like, I'm coming back. And then
No, he decommitted from Ohio State to commit to Georgia.
However that works, okay.
Yeah, he decommitted from Nebraska to commit to Ohio State.
Yeah.
At which point he decommitted from Ohio State to commit to Georgia, and ultimately he decommitted from Georgia to commit to Nebraska.
And by then you guys had like 5 quarterbacks. So
yes, and we've got 7 quarterbacks in the room, and our lowest one is a 4-star. So
yeah, he wasn't going to play first year. So that's why I'm pretty sure Rule told him, you come back, I'll play you. Like, he's playing.
man, Ryan Willie is taking some shots tonight, Greg.
Dude.
And Wisconsin owns
Evil
Minnesota
Badgers.
in football and hockey.
You don't own us in hockey. I'm sorry about that.
Oh boy. Tony Lawson says the pig stays in Minneapolis.
Absolutely.
Immaculate's not speaking up, so we'll take that as a logical.
No, I mean, we let them have it for a year just so that way it looks like it's a real rivalry.
That's the same thing we've done with
It'll be
Michigan
back
the
next
last
year.
3 years. By the same logic, Georgia should have run the table last season, and yet I don't know what that was in reference to, Sergeant.
I think we were talking about how Ohio State is just so stacked. And I'm, biased or not biased, I think this Ohio State team might be one of the most stacked teams of all time. I think it's more stacked than that Georgia team. It's stupid. It's ridiculous.
That Georgia team this year, man, they're stacked again.
They are. I mean, they're stacked.
They got Trevor Etienne in the transfer portal. The best. I don't know if he was the best player.
I think Ohio State has the best 2 running backs in all of college football on their team.
Yeah,
like that's silly.
Well,
they're never going to be tired.
Maybe Quinshon Judkins. His freshman year he was an absolute beast. Last year he wasn't. So I don't know if it was. I couldn't figure that out. I don't know if it was Ole Miss's old line, if he was nicked up. Something happened to Quinshon Judkins. He only averaged 4.3 yards per rush last year. Is he the absolute stud that the Buckeyes think he is? We'll find out.
Yeah, I think that they saw what Michigan did, and they're like, "Oh yeah, hold our beer." That running back combo. It probably doesn't matter who their quarterback is because most teams are just going to be trying to stack up to stop the running game because they also have a pretty amazing offensive line, unless I'm wrong. Offensive line look good, Moen?
We'll see in spring practice. We'll see in the spring game.
That might be your Achilles heel there. Then.
Yeah, that would be the only downside I see in that team.
You need that if you're going to have a good running game.
Preseason champions, OHIO. Last I looked, $100 bet on a Big 12 team to win a national championship would cash you out with at least $6,000.
That's some slander right there, guys. That's some shade.
Well, why don't you place that bet, you?
You know what? I will place the bet on the Utah Utes on a freaking live show. Why don't we do that?
All right.
Oh,
I'll place a bet on Ohio State and make $4 back. Rock and Rant. Hope he takes English, learns to define commitment. I think he's talking about Dylan Raiola.
Oh yeah, Raiola.
He's committed. He's committed to several people.
Yeah, this isn't.
Did he get any NIL fans prematurely, guys? Did Ohio State pay him any money at all for the brief commitment?
No, we don't pay you till you get on campus.
You sure about that?
Pay you. As soon as you get on campus.
And you're not paying for visits?
It clears as soon as you get on campus, brother. And besides, we didn't do, we learned from Michigan. We're just going to cheat. Screw it. Cheating's legal now. We'll cheat too. Iowa's BU QB isn't from New Hampshire. That's for sure.
Go Hawks.
Well, there's only one Max Brosmere, and he's with the Golden Gophers. So buckle up, brace for impact, Big Ten. That's all
You know,
I got.
if you need a quarterback, just in case it doesn't work out for you, I might suggest one by the name of Deacon Hill. It's all yours.
Nah, we're good. We're good. Although we're not good, because we're going to be looking for QB2 in the portal after spring practices here. So if there is a quarterback that loses the battle for QB2, like at Ohio State, when it comes to Devin Brown versus Kineholtz, we'll take the loser of that battle, and he'll be QB2 at Minnesota.
If you take the loser from Ohio State's battle, he'd be QB1 at Minnesota.
Not ahead of Max Brosmer, baby. New Hampshire.
Buckshot Kid's been a member for a month. Will the Golden Gophers win the Frozen Four before they make the CFP?
No comment.
No comment. Okay.
It's just too painful to answer that question. That's all. Too painful.
And good to see you come over, Buckshot. I saw that you had some postings that were coming in over from Twitch, and we had those lined up to talk about. But this is why maybe folks come on over to YouTube, join up, and you can get your comments rushed up to the front of the line.
There you go. Scott White from Florida. Will Howard was benched at K-State for a few games due to performance. Like I said, if he doesn't work out, we got 2 5-stars sitting behind him. And 2
I think he's going to be good for you guys. Chip Kelly's going to make a difference too. I mean, we forget Chip Kelly went over to Ohio State. He's going to be coaching Will Howard. I mean, I think that he's set up for big time success.
Is Chip Kelly kind of a beacon for the future, where now so much business has gotten tied into the job of head coaching, where some of these guys that just like to coach are people are like, this is crazy that he's doing this. I don't think it is. He's doing what he loves. You can see it. Like, I've seen some footage now of him there. I mean, he seems happy as hell. So is this going to be a thing where guys who just like to coach just stay at the coordinator level?
Yeah, he looks like a very happy egg.
What do you think, Greg? You think that's the thing?
I think you're correct. I think some of these guys are going to grab that coordinator position, well-paying coordinator position, and they just want to coach.
Yeah, just coach, get a couple $1 million. Like,
especially if they've made their money. Yeah.
I mean, he's leaving UCLA with like high LA costs, and he's going out to Ohio, where things might cost a little bit less. So that money is going to stretch a lot farther too.
Yeah.
And the food's a lot better out here too than LA. I mean,
people underestimate
everything in cheese. I mean,
what's the food specialty out there in Columbus? I know that Minnesota, you got the Juicy Lucy. And then
the Terminator, the Thurman burger is really big down there in Columbus. But anybody who knows anything will tell you, Dirty Frank's Hot Dog Palace. If you want a good hot dog, Dirty Frank's. Mikey's Late Night Slice is good for pizza. Columbus style pizza, Donato's, Massey's, Romeo's. Those would be the things in Ohio, but anything in Ohio, they're going to smother the shit out of it in cheese. So
and that's why I can't stand the Juicy Lucy, and that's why I can't stand Columbus cuisine. Cheese should not be with meat.
Oh God,
Greg, how do you not like a Juicy Lucy? That's like Minnesota specialty.
Ugh. No, there should not be cheese on a hamburger. I bet I had a whole live show on that once.
I will just say the one thing we won't take credit for is Skyline Chili. I will never, ever, ever, ever talk up Skyline Chili.
That's a Bearcat thing, right?
Yeah, it's chili with cinnamon in it. It doesn't make any sense.
Ugh.
It does not make sense. It's unnatural.
Do you guys have like Lutefisk up there in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's a little watery. Yeah, that as a Minnesotan, you're eventually going to eat it. So, it's pretty good. Wild rice is really the Minnesota food. I think 90 some percent of all wild rice production in the United States, or maybe even the world, is in Minnesota. Every town you drive through in northern Minnesota, you see wild rice, buy your wild rice.
Got a lot of water, so
yeah, a lot of water. It's not really a rice. It's a grain that sort of has the texture of rice. Yeah, so when you buy a bag of wild rice, it's probably from Minnesota. That's the Minnesota food, not Juicy Lucy, in my opinion.
Wow.
Ryan Willie has gifted 1 membership to the College Football Mafia, and that went to Larry M., a fellow Hawkeye
Go
for
Hawks.
Immaculate.
Man.
That we're giving them away to Iowa Hawkeyes now.
Thank you, Ryan. Hey, can we
Thank
go
you
back to
so
the
much,
last
Ryan.
comment from Jeff Fuller? Jeff's in
Oh.
the house.
Hey y'all, Jeff said, "Hey y'all." I accidentally unstarted it.
Oh, no worries. So Jeff's the BYU analytics dude, so he'll be excited to know that there is a new Big 12 model that's just been developed and everything, and the Cougars shake out pretty well in it. So to be determined, though, when we release that information.
Oh man. Mr. Monkey says, I'm thinking the top 4 brands in the SEC are Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Florida. Fair? Who is number 5? Tennessee, A&M. No, it's not fair. Texas is going to be in your top 4 now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like,
yeah.
You got to take in the new guys. Well, who do we drop out of there? Florida? I mean, they haven't been good lately, but they're still a huge brand.
I
So
think
Alabama,
you might have
Texas,
to take
Georgia.
I see. Georgia is relative. See, recency bias is propping Georgia up there.
Yeah, but Georgia's a big brand.
Georgia's got to be a top 4 SEC brand. Definitely. Really?
Alabama, Texas, Oklahoma.
No.
Yes.
No.
I mean, the
Look at
blue
Blue
blood
Blood-
rankings like
look at
that.
Blue
You can have
Blood
Oklahoma in
rankings.
your top 6, but your top 4.
Blue blood rankings.
Oh, he was like number 2 in the blue blood rankings. It's
Yeah.
nuts.
Blue blood rankings. Yeah, then I'd probably put Florida or LSU.
Yeah, SEC's got some good brands. There's a bunch of them are down right now in their gameplay, but they got some real good brands there.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. I think Georgia recency bias. Laura Weiss, give Rule some time. I think
Yeah, that's
she's
my
trying to
worry.
say, let Rule cook.
Let him cook. Let him cook now. Let him cook.
Bring
I
it, Rule.
said,
Bring
let
it.
him cook.
Where did you get that from? What is that from, Moan?
I don't know. It just says let him cook. It was on
Let him cook
YouTube.
them juicy Lucy's.
It was copyright. I have to agree with Greg. I don't like Juicy Lucy's.
Yeah. Ugh.
The first time I went to Minneapolis, I remember everyone was like, "Oh, this is the food for Minnesotans." So like, you had to have it. You had to have it. So every meal for like 5 meals, we had juicy Lucy's.
Oh. Yeah, no, here in Ohio, what we do is they're called slobber knockers. You serve them, they're half-pound patties served in between 2 grilled cheese sandwiches.
What?
Oh, God.
Yeah.
The cheesification of America, man. I'm gonna have to do another live show on it.
That's just because your feelings for Wisconsin.
It's partially, of course, but yeah, it's just everyone throws all this cheese on all this meat. You don't throw cheese on a beautiful steak. You don't throw cheese on a beautiful fillet. How about don't throw cheese on anything? Have cheese on your bread. Have cheese on your crackers. But meat and cheese should be separated on your plate.
We'll have to agree to disagree on that.
Yeah, I'm just going to have to disagree on that. I'm having some cheese on my burger, and that's that.
Ah.
Dylan Raiola only played at 3 high schools in Texas, Arizona, and Georgia.
Okay.
So you just can't commit to a state. All right. We get it.
Got it. Correction.
Oh, preseason champions Ohio brings up Cincy chili. Again, I'm not going to defend it. I'm going to apologize for it every time it's brought up. Listen, chili has beans in it. I'm sorry, it does. This show has hit almost the 2-hour mark, so I know you wouldn't get to my comment.
But we just did. So you're
we just
wrong.
did.
Look
So
at that
you're
buckshot
wrong.
kid. Got it in.
But we do appreciate you still following on Twitch. You must be watching some gaming going on over there as well.
Pickles with a $2 super chat. If you cook crab whole, you are wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't cook any crab, guys, so I don't know. I don't have crabs.
That's generally how folks do it, right?
I cook crawfish from time to time, but
yeah, whenever
most
I go to
people
a
won't eat
crab
crawfish.
place, it's like it's either. I mean, you can get legs, but they still tend to cook the whole thing. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Floyd don't eat rice, needs Iowa sweet corn.
Dude,
Ooh,
seriously,
ooh.
Iowa sweet corn. That's where it's at.
It's true. How else are you going to get that pig to be that fat?
It's not wrong.
All right, guys, we're going to wind it down here on the Big 12 Mafia or the College Football Mafia Big Freakin' Friday show. I want to thank Greg for jumping in here with us and mixing it up.
Heck yeah.
Talking about culinary, talking about football, talking about everything under the sun here on the Big Freakin' Friday show. Immaculate, anything you want to say before we go?
Just, I don't know. Watch North Carolina. Watch what's going on there when we were talking about Clemson. I think that's going to be where our hints come from in terms of what's going on with that. While watching all this talk going on with the college football playoff, remember, nothing is set in stone. They're not just figuring out the tournament. They're figuring out pay. They're figuring out voting rights. And every time in a negotiation, you ask for more than what inevitably you will accept. So if everything sounds extreme and is extreme right now, just remember it's part of the negotiation.
All right, your turn.
Watch Clemson, the biggest underdog in realignment. They will have a landing spot. Don't diss on Clemson Tigers. There's a lot of shade being thrown at them over there. They're a freaking big brand. So watch out for Clemson. This is a power move here. If they throw a lawsuit out there soon in the near future, that's just basically showing their hand. They've got a spot, guys.
All right, Greg, anything you have to say?
Yeah, to piggyback off of Wild Youth, it's the Clemson mystery. They've put a lot of work, time, resources into the last 7, 8, 9, 10 months. I just don't see from what we've heard that they're just going to continue to sit on the ball. At some point, something's going to happen. So buckle up, brace for impact.
All right. And I will say this before we go. This is a lean job. They're leaning on them, people. They're leaning on the ACC. They're trying to knock that wall down. So they are leaning on them. Yep. And with that, we will end the show. And I will see you guys on Sunday for 8 o'clock. This Sunday, 8 o'clock, Mowing After Dark with me and Immaculate. Doing a lot more chat interaction. I want to thank everybody who left a super chat tonight. Everybody who became a member tonight. Everybody who was gifted a member tonight. Make sure you thank the people who gifted you the memberships. And now that we're done, you can run over to the members only section and view how Georgia Tech fits into the Big Ten. Thank you all and have a good night.
Gophers.
Go Hawks.
Go Buckeyes.